Hello, and welcome to Chess Book Reviews 97. I've got 3 books for you here. Four books for you here. Nothing to blow you away, but they're all random titles. This is the Times Little Book of Chess Secrets. At one time, and until about 3 years ago, and for many years, the Times correspondent was Ray Keane, and Ray has since retired from mainstream journalism. I miss him, but a lot of people perhaps would think otherwise, which is a shame, but an inevitability after a long career, which has been touched by controversy and even controversy. It says Raymond Keane, OBE, Chess Grandmaster. And it's called Little Book of Chess Secrets. Chess is the most popular mind sport in the world. A 2012 YouGov survey revealed that 60 million people worldwide regularly play chess. That's probably as many as don't play chess, isn't it, really? The game has been given an immense boost with which opponents can reach 24/7 in internet games around the world. Chess has been favored by the great German dramatist Goethe. It was mentioned by Shakespeare, praised by Lenin, and played by, are you ready for this? Queen Elizabeth I, Henry VIII, and Tsar Peter the Great. When Bobby Fischer was hesitating in his match of the century challenge to Boris Spassky, it was a phone call from the then US Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, which prompted Fischer to play on and win. Recent research proves that chess helps develop logic, analytical, memory, and numeracy skills. And chess has now been adopted as part of the national educational curriculum in many countries. I'm not going to go on, but Ray praises it to the heights here. Gives a list of champions, and then early champions, official champions, and talks about the values of the pieces and how to write down your moves. Well, at one time or other in our lives, we all needed to learn how to write down our moves. During a competitive game, that would be essential. Wouldn't have any choice. He also explains what a Zwischenzug is, and I think Natasha Reagan is writing a book, possibly with Matthew Sadler, but I'm not sure about that, about Zwischenzugs. So there we are. I wish her well with that, and it's a new project. I don't think anyone, Zwischenzugs are mentioned in between moves. Sorry, I don't speak any German, so probably mispronouncing that, but it's something like that, isn't it? You're talking about pieces in conflict, in other words, one against the other, knight versus bishop. Well, it's a good idea to centralize your pieces. You'd argue with that. Power of the pin and win, as Reinfeldt used to say, it is not a sin to win by a pin. Watch out for stalemates. Pass pawn. Weak back ranks. This is a game between Bernstein and Capablanca. And Capablanca played the $1 million knockout move, Queen B2. Can you see that? Try and straighten it up a bit. There we are. He played 29, Queen B2, and it can be captured. But he won't want to capture it because he's so weak on the back rank. We have all of us, I think, at one time or another, fallen into back rank weaknesses. And Sunnox fell for back rank mates twice in one tournament in Folkestone, and we pulled her leg outrageously about it afterwards, and Anne took it all in good heart, as she always did. So a little tribute there to the former British lady champion. Bishop Crossfire. How two bishops can combine. And there's a position here between Gallagher and Allure. Joe Gallagher was at one time a friend of mine. Not a close friend, but nevertheless a friend. And we had some fun analysing some games. His games, I might say, not mine. I don't think he would have wanted to have looked at my games, except to perhaps wonder how on earth such a mess could have been reached. The rook switch. In other words, the rook cannons in, barrels in. The knight invasion. All sorts of technical terms. Counter-attack is the best defense. Actually, that's not always the case. Many positions where I've been worse in. And here we have a position by the world number one, Magnus Carlsen, playing against the old champion, Anand. An interesting position from Gibraltar tournament. A lot of good was done in Gibraltar. Sadly, they don't have these anymore. They've stopped them, but by the British lady, top female player, Yovi Hauska. It's taken me a very, very long time to learn how to pronounce her name. And she likes it, and her name is Jovanka, but she would like to be called Yovi. And Hauska. You'll hear all sorts of other ways of pronouncing it, but that's what she prefers, and I'm in no position to be disrespectfully inaccurate. Night Forks here by Aronian, one of the Hastings 2000. Can you see that? The one on the right at the top, it says Night Fork 1. Aronian, who went on to be, he still is, one of the strongest players in the world. And here we have Alakine playing Lasker at Zurich 1934. Alakine was about to lose his title to Irva and then win it back. Not many people that do that. Botvinnik did it. Alakine did it. I don't think Fischer would have done it. I can't think who else has done it. You might like to look through the record books and correct me, or update my knowledge, shall we say. I can't think of anybody else, those two players. Botvinnik did it. He lost to Tal. Well, he lost to Smyslov, didn't he? And then came back again. The comeback kid. Yes, he did. How quickly one forgets. Two rooks working in tandem on the back rank. See that? The two black rooks standing there. I don't know that position. I haven't seen that discussed anywhere else. Ray's obviously been dusting off some pretty good old books. This is the rapid play from Monaco 2002. Morosevich, a player who I have to say didn't quite fulfill his potential against Lubojevic, of whom that can be said, but in a previous 50 years ago, he was leading the interzonal in Brasilia. And we all thought, here comes a new player on the scene to challenge Bobby and others, but to challenge Bobby, it never happened. He never got to that standard, and he didn't even qualify from the interzonal. In fact, I don't think he ever played in the candidates. Here is a game played between Peter Lee, who is now coming up 80, and Nigel Povar. Here's a game between Alakine and Freeman. God knows who Freeman is. I'll have to look that one up. From New York, 1924, one of the most important tournaments, not just of that decade, but of the 20th century. Yes. Here we have Kramnik. I'm told he's very good at pushing past pawns. There's the two little pawns coming up the board. There's the rook on the 8th. I can mum with it, and he's shepherding them in. The king on g3, about to leap up the board, maybe. Good stuff. All good, refreshers on some themes you'll know, and some themes you won't. I think this is really top-notch stuff by Ray here. He's obviously been plundering the archives. And let's face it, history provides us with very, very good archives. Well, I can't go through every page, but if I did, I think I'd learn a lot. This book is called The Times Little Book of Chess Secrets. I can't see a price on it. I imagine it would be about £5. But if you see it around, a good little thing to carry in a rucksack or jacket pocket or what you will, give it your time. Now, here's a much older book. This was written sort of just after the war by Leonard Barden. This book was so heavily praised by Cecil Purdy that I think in my preliminaries I wrote that it was by Cecil Purdy. Nothing of the sort. It's written by Leonard. Leonard is still with us. Says chess correspondent, Manchester Guardian, and former British chess champion. He was actually joint British chess champion, and the tie, which they played a match, quite a long match, was never resolved, and Alan Phillips and Leonard kept the title joint. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't know that ties have to be resolved. This book was published in 1957. That's funny. I thought it was slightly longer ago than that. And subsequently was reissued with work by Tim Harding, who better? Tim Harding in Dublin now, but in his time here in England, but I don't know about that, does it? This book is intended as a guide and not an encyclopedia. And it is in that respect, he talks about themes and ideas as much as key variations. And this is worn well. Leonard has done terrific stuff here. In the introduction, which is pretty dense, you look at this. This is pretty tough meat. This is, wouldn't want a brave man would have set out to scale the heights of this book, only to, as I might, fall back in the foothills and say, I can't continue. This is Not too difficult, but perhaps too indigestible. It's not the same, is it? It's always important if something goes wrong with your life to be able to articulate exactly what it is. Someone has come up to you and say, "You all right?" And you say, "What's the good of that?" But if you say, "I'm too hot, I'm too cold, someone's just upset me," they will know. They may not be able to remedy the problem, but they will know. Discussions of the Lopez and the game Steinitz-Chigorin. Theirs was a wonderful rivalry, Steinitz and Chigorin. The real Lopez was 60 years ago. Now, well over a century ago, of course. Chigorin was Russian. Steinitz was Austrian, Germany, very much a continental. But both of the guys travelled widely and played as much as they could, and also corresponded about various variations, wrote letters to each other. And as with Lasker, a lot of fruit came out of their discussions. Talking about the Queen's Gambit here, starting with Saint-Amand and Staunton. And going on to Pillsbury, Marco. Again between Kramer and Van Schiltinger. Kramer versus Kramer, eh? He's talking about the Vienna Gambit, or the Vienna game, rather. He gives a typical early middle game position, and with observations, white is building up on the king's side, or black has broken through on the queen's side due to the active rooks and so forth. In other words, it isn't just A, B, 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 A. It is ideas and discussions. Some of them really interesting. Now you look here, for example, this is a section on the Lopez, and Leonard gives 4 positions from top level games, of course, and asks you to consider them in the light of what he's already said, your games, what you may be aiming at. It doesn't always work, but then again, chess is not formulaic. Section on the French, the classical French. Oh, look at that. As I know, my rich experience with the French, both good and bad, it's a good system. With either colour, if you get a French, you enjoy yourself, it's interesting. Guimard, or Guimard, maybe. How many books would bother to discuss that, as Leonard does? 3, knight, queen, bishop 3, and in the words knight c6. See that? Let's go nearer. Let's lift and separate. There. See the chapter heading? The French defence. See the section? The Guimard variation. Some lovely old games here. Queen's Indian Defence. Something I've yet mastered, but I've yet mastered. That's a bit rich, isn't it? So if I can find you some positions to have a look at. There's one, I suppose, white to move. Diagram on the page. See that? what would you do there if you were white? Count the pieces, I should think. Both got a rook each, 2 minor pieces and a queen. Black's bombing up some sort of counterplay on the king side with possible queen checks and a slightly wobbly king on h2. I don't know how it could have been improved at an earlier stage. An interesting position chapter on the king's inner defence, which Leonard examines but doesn't necessarily recommend. Well, I wouldn't presume to argue with that, but I would say that it's, as with everything else in this book, it's very, very well worthwhile looking through it. He talks about it, the last chapter, 14, talks about various systems. I'm going to have to cut this short. I'm not feeling too good. Thank you for listening. This has been Chess Book Reviews 97. I shall be back soon when I'm feeling a little better.